Let's see if I can read. This is something I wrote last year about ISTDP, which is the school of therapy, I guess, that I use now in my clinical practice. Something I wrote really to try and clarify for myself what it was that I was finding so useful about the model, especially in relation to other models that I had used previously. Anyway, I thought I would try and read some of this. I wrote this in 2023. ISTDP provides me with a clear, coherent structure that makes sense of a collective human condition, but that holds space for immense individual variation. ISTDP distills almost every presentation down to a remarkably similar conceptual premise that the prospect of emotional intimacy, in other words, getting close to a person, opening up and sharing emotions, allowing a person to know a genuine desire you hold, being vulnerable with another, all these things, this prospect of emotional intimacy triggers defenses against emotional intimacy. These defenses were previously adaptive, meaning that they were developed at a time when protection from emotional intimacy was adaptive to survival. Survival can mean quite a few different things there. But for example, in an inescapable relationship like with a parent. From an ISTDP perspective, a client presents in the therapy room because these previously adaptive defenses against emotional intimacy are now leading to present-day suffering in the form of depression or anxiety, chronic loneliness, could be physical complaints, also a number of things. In other words, there is an internal conflict about being honest, right? This, because being honest goes hand in hand with emotional intimacy. We have to have honest access to what is going on within us, and then also share honestly in order for emotional intimacy to be brought about. So there is an internal conflict about being honest, both with oneself and or also with others. All the psychological forces that manifest to curtail honesty can lead to self-delusion, in the case of honesty with oneself, can lead to relational distance, so loneliness, disconnection, and can lead to body states that hide the parts we do not want to notice. So anxiety, depression, these sorts of things. For different clients, it might be that one, rather than notice my anger, I notice feeling anxious and I escape a situation. Escape can mean all sorts of relational escape too, such as convincing myself that a person is all bad, so I don't have to be in that relationship with them anymore, which is also known as monsterizing someone or splitting or dismissing. For another client, it might be that rather than notice my guilt, I get defensively angry at another person who I have actually harmed or wronged, and I find reasons to substantiate my anger so as not to feel my guilt. One covers the other. But the anger in this example is defensive. It keeps the person from noticing the guilt that sits underneath it in any depth. And the problem there is that they then can't action anything from that place of guilt, because guilt is pointing to reach out and repair. And so if we are not in touch with the message it's trying to send us, and instead we are sitting in a defensive anger that actually wants us to do the opposite of that. It wants us to either protect ourselves or lash out or whatever it is, then obviously we are missing a relational opportunity there that would otherwise be available to us if we could be more in touch with the sort of the primary emotion that sits underneath. And it can also just be really uncomfortable to remain in an anxiously angry state that doesn't get resolved, and also is bringing about this anxiety, which is deeply uncomfortable. For another client, it might be that rather than notice my pain or grief, I go numb or depressed or flat or detached. I feel nothing, right? And it just robs life of emotional quality. And this includes things often like joy and pleasure as well. The client's conscious awareness of the self-censorship can differ wildly, as can the ways in which their psyche goes about ensuring the censorship. The precise reasons for why these mechanisms developed in the first place also differ, as well as the particularities of what was hidden away. All of these variables provide the rich tapestry of individual differences and give rise to the unique constellation of symptoms for every person who sits down before us. So that was just some notes that I had written down in August 2023 about, I guess, trying to bring together some of the key ideas of what I was finding useful about ISTDP, how I understood it at that time, also the implications for how we might go about then working with someone to resolve some of these difficulties. I actually have a lot more to say on that now. As I read back through that, I can already see things that I would change. But I think as a whole, it definitely captures some of the starting points of interest that might help to answer, what is this approach all about? Why is it that I'm finding it particularly useful? There's also a lot to be said on how we actually go about then responding to this, what we're doing in our work with the client. There's so much to say on that that is different and unique about ISTDP. So I might record something that just outlines a few of those key points. But for now, I hope that that helps maybe to give a little color and shape to what I'm talking about when I'm talking about an ISTDP approach.